Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're taking a really deep psychological dive into the actual architecture of deception. We're going to analyze the anatomy of a nightmare by looking at 3 harrowing real-world accounts where everyday life just completely warped into a thriller. And we're not just going to recount the facts here. We're going to look directly through the victim's eyes to uncover the exact patterns that predators use to trap their targets.
So think about this. What happens when the person watching you is the person you trusted? It's a totally chilling question, right? Because we're so conditioned to think of true terror as some stranger lurking in a dark alley. But the reality? It's far more insidious. True terror rarely starts with violence. It starts with an illusion of safety, a friendly face, a helpful favor, or a perfect date, which slowly and methodically metastasizes into an absolute waking nightmare.
Every single alarm bell inside my head was going off. Well, let's dive into exactly how that feels. We're going to explore the 3 terrifying stages of psychological manipulation experienced by 3 different individuals who, thankfully, survived to tell the tale. We'll trace the distinct pattern their manipulators used, literally starting from the very first handshake straight into the suffocating grip of survival.
All right, let's look at stage 1, false trust. To actually secure a victim, perpetrators don't act like predators. They wear these meticulously crafted masks, zeroing in on a specific vulnerability and filling that void perfectly. Take our first subject, Sue. She was a young, confident bartender trying to build her own business, but she desperately needed capital. And enter Steve. To Sue, Steve was an absolute godsend. He gave off this aura of extreme wealth, driving a Corvette, always looking boardroom ready, constantly offering to fund her dreams. When her other investors backed out, she took his money, feeling this profound relief that she finally had a supportive friend. She had absolutely no idea that his money was just the lock clicking shut on her cage.
Now, consider our second subject, an engaged man totally crippled by insomnia and toxic doubts about his fiancée. Driven by pure desperation and a lack of sleep, he turns to a Craigslist private investigator and meets Shane. Now, Shane shows up to a park in beat-up sweatpants with his girlfriend, claiming this highly unprofessional look is absolutely vital to, quote, blend in. I mean, talk about a red flag, right? But the victim, drowning in anxiety and desperate for answers, just accepts this bizarre logic and hands over his cash off the books. Boom. The mask of a gritty, underground professional is firmly established.
Then there's our third subject. A woman, isolated in a new city during a lockdown, turns to dating apps just looking for a casual connection. She meets Wade. On paper, Wade was perfect. Handsome, smart, funny. But looking through her eyes, despite the perfect resume, the guy radiated this unshakable bad vibe. Imagine that agonizing internal conflict. Your brain is telling you, hey, this guy is a great catch, but your gut is literally screaming at you to run. Luckily, she trusted her instincts and politely cut ties, assuming that was the whole shebang. She couldn't have been more wrong.
Which brings us to stage 2, creeping dread. This right here is the psychological turning point where the facades begin to fracture. It's that agonizing, suffocating realization that you're being hunted. For Sue, the wealthy investor completely vanished and was replaced by an obsessive controller. Steve's harassment escalated to 24/7 phone calls. If she went on a date, Steve would follow them, even violently punching one of her dates unconscious at a bar. Sue was paralyzed by guilt over taking his money, trapping her in a cycle of fear where she'd wake up in the pitch black, totally terrified by the phantom sounds of footsteps right outside her bedroom window.
Now, for the woman who swiped right on Wade, this dread didn't start with violence. It started with a mysterious gray SUV with tinted windows parking outside her house every single night. Then, a tall man in sunglasses starts staring her down at the grocery store. Later, while on a genuinely great date with a new guy named Paul, she spots that exact same man sitting quietly inside the coffee shop. The absolute terror hits when police are finally called, only to reveal the stalker is a licensed private investigator. Yeah, Wade had actually hired a professional to aggressively tail her every single move. Meanwhile, our engaged man was experiencing his own creeping dread. A week of agonizing radio silence from his Craigslist PI, Shane, ends with the text at 1:16 a.m. Shane claims he has vital information that literally cannot wait until morning and demands an immediate meeting. Driven entirely by exhaustion and paranoia regarding his fiancée, the victim's mind performs these terrifying mental gymnastics. He ignores massive red flags just to drive 10 minutes into the dead of night.
And that leads us to stage 3, the unmasking.
This is the exact moment the predator completely drops the act, strips away all illusions, and springs the trap in the dark. Across all 3 accounts, a chillingly identical playbook emerges. Step 1, establish connection. Step 2, isolate the target from safety nets. Step 3, execute the ambush. Every single one of these perpetrators engineered scenarios specifically designed to corner their victims when they are at their most vulnerable. So, put yourself directly in the engaged man's shoes for a second. You pull up to an abandoned, pitch-black house at nearly 2 a.m. You text your contact, and the reply is simply, "The door's unlocked, come inside." Against literally every survival instinct you possess, the sheer desperation for answers pushes him through the front door and right into the suffocating darkness of a silent, empty house.
He calls out into the void. Nothing. No answer. Then another text lights up his phone. "I hear you upstairs. Just go to the door on the far left and come on down." He slowly opens the basement door, looking down into a literal dark abyss with the lights completely shut off. It is in this sheer, visceral moment of terror, staring down a staircase into a trap set by total strangers, that his survival instincts finally overpower the illusion and he turns and sprints for his life.
For Sue, her unmasking was more of a slow burn that erupted years later. After years of total silence, a hooded figure starts knocking on her door at 2 a.m. She ends up hiring a real private investigator to finally track down Steve. The PI chases the figure into the deep woods and makes a truly stomach-churning discovery, a hidden, rotting shack. And inside, sitting in a wheelchair in the gloom, is a beaten-up mannequin wearing makeup and a blonde wig.
The psychological depravity here is just staggering. In the lap of that mannequin was an old photo of Steve and Sue. The wealthy Corvette-driving investor, he never existed. It was all an elaborate scam. Actually, scratch that. When police arrested Steve at the shack, he wasn't a rich businessman at all. He was a feral, filthy shell of a human being who had been secretly living out in the woods, talking to a fake version of Sue, just waiting to strike.
For the woman stalked by the SUV, her unmasking happened in broad daylight. While she was hiking at a state park with her new boyfriend Paul, a man suddenly sprints out of the woods, grabs her arm, and screams directly in her face. It was Wade. He had gone to the extreme lengths of hiring a PI, tracking her down and attempting to physically abduct her while screaming psychotic delusions about her being unfaithful to a relationship that never even existed. Had Paul not immediately tackled Wade to the ground, there is no telling if she'd be here to tell the story.
Finally, conclusion: the lingering scars.
As we wrap up this explainer, we really have to look at the grim aftermath of these events. Because escaping the physical trap is only half the battle, right? Surviving the immediate danger does not erase the permanent psychological damage inflicted by such extreme deception. Each victim is condemned to forever look over their shoulder. Sue spent years suffocating under phantom anxiety before Steve was finally caught. The engaged man who walked into that dark house developed debilitating trust issues that he battles to this very day. And the woman who survived Wade's ambush, she had to get a restraining order, living with the permanent, terrifying knowledge that Wade simply deleted his social media and disappeared right back into the crowd.
These accounts force us to confront a deeply unsettling reality. We walk past strangers every single day, totally unaware of the complex, sometimes incredibly dangerous narratives unfolding behind their eyes. And it leaves us with a final, chilling question. You can recognize the patterns, and you can survive the trap. But once you realize how easily monsters hide behind friendly faces, does the paranoia ever truly leave? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep your eyes open